Good morning. How are you doing today? Very cold. Let's wait 5 minutes to see who else joins us and then we'll start the lesson. Are you well, Anati? Did you come to the lecture last week where I spoke about the assessment? I'm doing okay. I have a lot of marking to do. It's a lot of stress, actually. So, did you come to the lecture last week? So, not many people passed the first assessment. Yeah, so not many people passed. Very, very few people passed. So, yeah, you should just ask what I said, and there was a lot of information about referencing. So if you didn't put quotation marks where quote was required, unfortunately, you got penalized, minus 50% for plagiarism, and this was for everybody. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. If you didn't put quotation marks in your assessment, definitely you would get minus 50%, even if it was for one thing. So this is what I was saying to everybody last week. Guys, it's so important for you to attend lectures. This is why you're not doing well in your assessments as well. Okay, so I did speak about the assessment last week, both the assessments, that the one that we marked and also the one that's coming up in May. So if you didn't attend the lectures, it's up to you to find out what I did speak about. If you have any questions, you can send me an email. So I think we can get started with today's lecture. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about semiotics or semiotics. Is there anyone who would like to guess what it means? Okay, but before we do that, let's go to any questions from the previous lecture, any questions about how media theories are used in practice, about feminism, post-structuralism, modernism, and how it's used to assess a range of media. So last week we did speak about Black Panther, how we assessed Black Panther, and then we also talked about fees must fall. We spoke about the communication models that were used to assess the fees must fall movement. We also spoke about the difference between the online media and traditional media that were reflective in the fees must fall movement. And how we could find various different instances of media theory. Okay, if you don't have the lecture notes for last week, send me an email. Any questions? No questions? Guys, remember that if you have no questions, to write no questions in the chat. Okay, so following your textbook today, we are on pages 77 to 86. And as I said, we're going to be talking about semiotics. So, language, imagery, and communication are an important part of how the media projects messages and provides us with information or advertises products. So advertisements, whether they're on radio, in a magazine, television, they use a lot of different techniques to communicate with us that try to convey the message that they want to send, and they use language, sound, and images. Okay, so some of you might know of jingles and slogans, okay, catchy tunes, etc., alliteration that they use, which is a repetition of sounds. So some of these that we just like, it stays in our minds. We retain this information. Can anybody tell me of a jingle or slogan that's embedded in your mind? Just some advertising. Okay, it's raining. Everybody's quiet today. Okay. So the techniques, among others, form part of what we call media discourse. So all these kinds of things that you see, jingle, slogans, rhyming words, etc., forms part of media discourse. And media discourse is a variety of different media and the equally expansive set of ways that each type of media reaches its audience. So if we look at the different type of media, books, magazines, radio, the internet, television, and each one speaks to the public with a different voice. So for example, television can host a variety of different programs ranging from fictional television shows to the daily news. What ties all of these together is that media discourse talks about social reality in some way. Because of this, social reality is always growing and changing. The way the media talks about it will grow and change too. Okay? Any questions? So another thing that you will notice about the term media discourse is that the word discourse implies conversation or a back and forth of exchange of information. This is because the media shapes the world around it, and it is also shaped by the world in which it's created, okay? So that's extremely true, okay? It's like a back and forth between the media and the people, and it's shaped by the contexts, various contexts of people, places, things, etc. So the conversation that happens between the media and the world occurs through language. So yes, we get images and texts. Imagery is a form of communication since an image has the ability to impart a message or evoke a response in the person viewing it. Semiotics, or the study of signs, is therefore at the core of media studies because it allows us to analyze and understand the conversation taking place between society and the media by making sense of what we hear or see and our interpretation of it. So we're going to speak about semiotics in structuralist and post-structuralist contexts. We're going to be detailing the relationship between ideas of semioticians, just two of them in today's lecture. Okay, we're going to talk about Roman Jacobson and Ferdinand de Sauw. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about structuralism and post-structuralism. Okay, so structuralism is a 20th century movement of philosophers, linguists, and scholars in a range of other fields who believe that human culture can be understood by studying the relationships between human beings and the structure of systems. Okay, so that's what we talk about when we talk about structuralism. Structuralism works to uncover systems and structures that coordinate, regulate, and underlie all human interaction. So how they think, feel, create, and navigate social reality. Okay. In linguistics and semiotics, Ferdinand de Sousa developed a structuralist approach to understand the way language works in society. His analysis focused not only on how language, which he termed parole or speech, is used, but rather an underlying system of language, which he called lang. His theories would go on to influence many semioticians. Okay, and then let's continue from there. So Roland Barthes contributes to structuralism through his theories of myth, denotation, and connotation. He also, however, focuses between structuralism and poststructuralism. Poststructuralism is a movement of thought that followed on from and was in many ways a reaction to structuralism. Unlike the systematic and structured methods of structuralism, poststructuralism argued that there are no systems or structures that can give order to human interaction. Rather, human interaction can only be understood in its current state as random and constantly evolving. Okay, so here we're saying that there's no systems or structures that we see in structuralism. It's only understood in its current state, so it's fluid and it's evolving. Any questions? So structuralism, we generate knowledge through structures that enable experiences. These structures are concepts, language, and science. Post-structuralism argues that it's possible to generate knowledge through both pure experience and systematic structures, or it's a combination of the two. So we're going to look at some of the theories from these semioticians. So media impacts every single aspect of our lives. It constructs it and it's deconstructed by it. The term media refers to a number of things: television, radio, print media, new media, film and advertising, just to name a few. So since the earliest days of mass communication, media has influenced social discourse about the issues of the day. When print was the dominant medium, whoever owned a printing press had a great deal of power to influence the attitudes, beliefs, and actions of those who were able to receive what was being circulated. As new media develops, audiences adapt. So while individuals have always been occupied with their own affairs, society forces collective issues in our daily lives. These collective issues can take on many forms, but they are largely appeal to things that a particular society recognizes collectively. For example, in contemporary society, there has risen an increased awareness of politics surrounding gender and sexuality. Yes, so we did speak a lot about politics last week, and well, in many of our lectures. Politics affects everything, and the media is no exception. So how did the media respond to this politics of gender and sexuality? So they became more inclusive in their representation of queer and female characters. Transgender women have started to feature in fashion shows and beauty campaigns. Okay, we see that more and more. There's more reality shows that feature queer people. And the shift in media echoes the politics and social issues that have come to the forefront in recent decades. The increase in gender-related issues in media has created awareness around these issues and has worked to educate those who have not had access to these ideas. The shift in public consciousness toward more inclusive and open dialogue around gender and sexuality has also caused the media to represent these issues. So kind of discourse can mean various different things in many different contexts. So 2 weeks ago, we spoke about discourse and we said that it relates more to ideology. Okay, and then when we spoke here about discourse, there was a different kind of meaning to it. Well, I need to find it. but there's various, when it comes to media, we can see that there's various different varying definitions of discourse. But it mainly means how a message is communicated. Okay, let's continue. The relationship between the media and society is dialectical, acting like a dialogue between two opposing sides, in the sense that media is influenced by society and society is influenced by the media. Media in all forms, types of mass communication that are able to reach a large audience. The term communication is particularly important here, as it refers back to the idea of the media as dialectical. The term dialectical, put simply, refers to a reasonable and rational discussion of something or an exchange of ideas. So what we see here is the reoccurrence of terms like communication, discussion, and conversation, all words that simply imply an exchange that we associate with language and expression. Questions? So media communicates with society through language and images. We are bombarded daily by different forms of communication, from road signs that we have read to navigate freeways to the instructions on a pack of 2-minute noodles. So behind it all is media, which permeates everything and has a huge influence on what we believe and know in contemporary society. The communication between media and society can be understood through semiotics, or the study of signs. The discipline of semiotics has influenced the media and vice versa since its conception in the 20th century. This is because semiotics is the study of sign systems. Questions?
No, ma'am.
So let's talk about this study of signs and symbols. It looks at how we communicate, receive, and interpret messages. As a general rule, media themselves are only messengers. The media provide a context for this delivery that is secondary to the messages that appear to make sense on their own. The nature of the media affects the message because each medium embodies a distinct symbol system of expression. In other words, different types of media convey different messages, but all media convey some kind of message. By analyzing these messages using theories, we can begin to uncover how communication takes place and in which messages are exchanged. Okay, Roman Jacobson's theory of communication. He was a Russian-American linguist and literary theorist, and one of the pioneers of structuralist linguists. Structural linguistics is a branch of linguistics that views language as a system of interrelated structures. Jacobson developed a theory that focused on the way that structure of language worked to perform its primary function, the communication of information between speakers. So when considering the process of communication, Jacobson says that we must consistently take into account the difference between communication, which implies a real or alleged addressor, and information whose source cannot be viewed as addressor by the interpreter of the indications obtained. In other words, Jacobson's analysis of communication tells us that verbal discourse goes far beyond the simple exchange of information between speaker and a listener. It involves determining who says what to whom, where and when it is said, and how it is said and why. So here we look at contextual factors. Any question? So the information or message that is conveyed by a speaker and the way in which this information or message is received and interpreted by the listener is shaped by a number of factors, such as the setting or context in which the exchange is taking place, the content of the message, the participants in the verbal exchange, and the goals or intentions of each person involved in the exchange. So Jacobson argued that any type of verbal communication is comprised of these 6 elements and 6 corresponding factors. So the first is context. This refers to the world or space in which the conversation or a verbal exchange takes place. The second is an addresser. The addresser is the communicator, the person speaking. Third is the addressee who receives the communication. Fourth is the contact that is made between the addresser and the addressee. Fifth is the code or the common code that allows the communication to be understood or received in the way that it is intended. And sixth is the message or the content of the communication that is being passed between the addresser and the addressee. Okay, so here we see the 6 components of language: context, addresser, message, code, addressee, and contact. And this is on page 81 of your textbook. And we see there's a message here that says, help me. Okay. So to put it differently, all communication can be characterized by an addressee who initiates the communication. There is a message that they want to convey. Who is the intended receiver of the message? The message is conveyed within a context that provides the tools that the addressee needs to decode, encode, and understand the message. So, for example, we see in that message, it says, help me, and it could have very different meanings depending on whether the addressee is dangling off the edge of a cliff, in danger, or simply needs assistance in carrying their groceries. So a mode of contact needs to be established in which the message is delivered between the addressee and addressee. And finally, a code provides a science for encoding and decoding the message. So, any questions?
No, ma'am.
I think this lecture today I don't think it's too difficult to understand like the previous weeks, to be honest. So Jacobson goes on to tell us that each of these 6 components determine a different function of communication. The emotive function to the way the addresser constructs the message. The intent of the addresser is emotive in the sense that the meaning of the message, no matter how little, can be altered by the presence of the addresser's emotion, social status, or attitude. The conative function refers to the tone of voice, individual selection of words, etc., used by the addresser, as well as how these are received by the addressee. So, when we were speaking about the example of help me, if the addresser is in danger, the phrase help me may be delivered in a way that is panicked, pleading, or displays the distress of the addresser. So all these kinds of functions deliver the message in a specific way. So if the addresser is seeking help with a daily task, it may be posed calmly as a question or request rather than a plea. The referential function refers to a message that is constructed to impart information, such as directions to a destination or the answer to a question. The poetic function refers to the message that delivers meaning in a way that is similar to poetry. Here, the message is focused on the message itself. The form of the message is also its content, and the message is language itself, okay? The phatic function refers to messages such as how are you or good morning, which are designed to reinforce, establish or acknowledge social relations. And the metalingual function refers to when language code is used to refer itself. For example, the word word is a word. Okay, so here they're just describing the components of language. Okay. Questions? So when we talk about the case study, maybe it will become a little bit easier to understand. So let's look at the case study on page 83. Okay, there's a picture there. Everybody please turn to page 83 if you are out of your bed and you have your textbook next to you because I know it's raining. Okay, so here we see a brief case study, okay? It's a local environmental NGO or NPO, Clean Oceans, and it's lobbying the South African government around issues of ocean pollution. So they're creating a petition, they are creating a petition for South Africans to sign, which they will present to the government. So it says there, they only have one bowl, we should keep it clean. An oil slick is not just a drop in the ocean. It affects all marine life from fish to birds and mammals. Last year, 7,000 tons of oil spilled into the ocean worldwide. We only have one world and we should keep it clean. Sign the petition at cleanoceans.co.za and let your voice be heard. Okay, and that's the petition that they had against oil spills in the ocean. Okay, cool. So they created an advertisement that uses a recognizable and everyday setting, a goldfish bowl, to try to capture public imagination. The dark swirls in the water at first may seem attractive until viewers notice the dark patches on the fish and the text regarding the extent of worldwide oil spills. The advertisement uses a statistic taken from a global organization that monitors oil spills, which estimated that over 7,000 tons of oil was spilled into the sea in 2017. Drawing on Jacobson's 6 factors of communication and functions of language, we can unpack the ways that the advertisement delivers its message to the intended audience. The advertisement serves as the addresser and aims to pass on a message to the addressee. Broadly speaking, in order to be successful, the advertisement needs to accomplish the following. So the phatic function, it has to attract the attention of the public or in the intended receiver of the message that the advertisement is trying to relay. It has to connect with the intended receiver of the message. The image on the poster, a fishbowl with dark swirls like oil, is unusual and bold. The household nature of a bowl or goldfish coupled with dark swirling shapes that are beautiful but unsettling invites the reader to question what they are seeing. It also attracts the addressee by using large bold font for a statement that addresses the viewer directly. The text that follows, which explains the goal of the advertisement, is the view smaller and falls after an area of white space, forcing the viewer to engage closely with the advertisements to understand it. The conative function. It has to convince the intended audience of its message by appealing to the reason or appealing to emotion. The poster appeals to both reason and emotion. The polluted fishbowl evokes an emotional response to the addressee, supported by the headline's challenge. We are expected to wish to save the fish by cleaning the bowl. The text also appeals to a sense of guilt at our inaction over large-scale environmental issues, as we have only one world, yet we allow it to be polluted. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so the smaller accompanying text then appeals to reason, describing the wide effects of an oil spill on the environment and presenting statistics about the extent of the problem. It also appeals to reason in arguing that just as we protect our pets by keeping the environment clean, we should do the same on a global level. So here we're relating the different functions to the advertisement. Okay. So let me just see something here. There's, okay. I think this comes next. So in summary, the advertisement proposes three images: pollution, cleaning the environment, and signing a petition, which are combined into sequences. This is an attack on ocean polluting and on those who allow it to happen. Two possible sequences are suggested to the addresser. If you allow spills to continue, you are contributing to the global environment's degradation in a way that is similar to leaving your fishbowl with dirty water. Okay, and the second one, okay. If you sign the petition, you are taking an action. Sorry, this is, I don't know where the slide goes in. I must just check. Sorry about that. So if you sign the petition, you are taking an action that will help to keep the environment clean and reduce pollution from oil spills. So the scenarios serve a moral and emotive function. The second is linked through words like should and clean to positive socially responsible behavior. By implication, we can see that the first scenario is linked to irresponsible behavior. The advertisement therefore encourages the addressee to participate in good socially responsible behavior and to sign the petition. Tando, that's a very interesting question. It's just that they're always searching for oil and doing things with oil. So we need to stop using oil. That's why it's really killing the animal life in the ocean. Okay, but that's a little bit unrelated, but yeah. And remember that we use all these cargo ships and they have oil. And I remember, I think it was last year where there was a very big oil spill in Mauritius that was really bad. It can have really, really severe effects. Okay, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Who's putting their camera on? I can see your bed. I didn't stop the videos. Wait. There we go. Okay. So then we're going to go to Ferdinand de Saussure. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. Okay, so let's talk about him. He was a Swiss linguist whose theories and ideas on structure and language formed the foundation for study of linguistics and linguistic sciences in the 20th century. So here we're talking about structuralism, etc. So Saussure argued that language must be studied chronologically. Oh, sorry, synchronically, I can't say this word, synchronically, language must be studied as it exists at any particular time. And diachronically, it must be studied as it changes over the course of time. His approach provided the starting point for the branch of linguistics known as structuralism. He's the most famous for his development of the relation between the sign and the signifier and the signified, and the ways that this relationship is arbitrary and motivated by social convention. So as I said, once again, structuralism. So human beings, okay, firstly, we're going to talk about science. Human beings are homo significans. This means that we are meaning makers, driven by a need to make meaning out of our surroundings. In doing so, we form an understanding of our world. He argues that we make meanings through our engagement with an interpretation of science. He provides us with a dyadic two-part model of what constitutes a sign. And in his model, a sign is a whole made of two parts, the signifier and the signified. The sign as a whole is created by the association between the signifier and the signified. So here we see his diagram, the Caesarian diagram, and the relationship between the signifier and the signified is called signification. And it's represented by the arrows pointing both up and down. We are on page 85. The line that separates the two elements of the sign is called the bar, and a sign must consist of both a signifier and a signified. Okay. So for example, okay, an example, a signifier, the word open, and a signified concept, the shop is open for business. The signified helps us to interpret the signifier, and the word open in another context, such as the top of a box of a cereal, will have a different meaning. So a signifier, the word open, a signified concept, this is where and how you should open the box of cereal. Okay, so it's the word. Okay, the signifier is the word. So signifiers is the sound image, the word or the visual aid that makes up part of the sign. A signifier can be seen as a visual text or an image, or heard, a sound image such as spoken words. For example, if someone says the word stop, or if we read the word stop on a street sign, we identify and understand it as a signifier that means we should stop. A word is created out of a number of letters, and by interpreting these letters as a word, meaning is created. So here, how do we create the meaning when we see these signs? Questions?
No, ma'am.
So the signified is the concept, idea, or meaning that we interpret from the signifier. When we hear or read the word stop, we attach meaning to it, and we understand that the word stop means that we should stop moving. However, the signified is not stable. The interpretation of the signifier is internal to the person who is interpreting it. Okay, so it can change depending on the person. So how we interpret the signifier is often affected by different people and different contexts. So we interpret things in many, many different ways. Okay, so we spoke about the signifier, the signified. So if we return to the word open, the meaning of the word changes in different contexts. So it can be an indication that a shop is open for business, or an instruction on how to open something. So that said, the signified can become stable through habit, use, and commonality. It is commonly understood, for example, that the word stop means that we must stop. We see road signs and hear this word in many different contexts throughout our lives, and in doing so, we formulate understanding of its meaning. Okay, everybody, let's go into the second lecture. Let me give you the link. So everybody can go there. I'll wait for you to go and I'll go. Okay, let's continue. So we are on page 86. And we're talking more about the referent. So what is the referent? The referent is a person to or thing to which a name, linguistic expression, or visual representation or other symbolic refers. For example, the word cat is not a cat, but rather it's a word that represents the meaning cat. A drawing or photograph of a cat is not a cat, but rather a visual representation of the cat. So when we read here or see a visual representation of the signifier cat, we associate it with our understanding of what a cat is. The referent is the actual cat. That is the cat that exists in the material world. Okay, so a referent is a living, breathing, real cat in the material world. Okay, that's a referent, something that's real, that's living. A picture is not a cat. The word written is not a cat. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And I think we're going to stop there. Wow, this lecture went quickly. So that is a referent. Okay, it's a living, breathing thing. It's not the word. So let's do this. What are examples or definitions of signifiers, signified, and a referent? Anyone want to try? So basically, we say there's a word, okay, and then which is the signifier, okay, and then the signified is how we interpret the word.
Ma'am, can I ask?
Yes.
You know how the color red is associated with like danger or anything? Can a signifier also be like just the color, or it has to be a word?
Yes. So, for example, when we see the color red, so it can be a visual text or an image. So we'll if you see a red picture, for example, it conveys something. So yes, it can be, because it's a picture. So for example, if we see like red, we know it means danger or to stop because we associate it with that. So can anyone give me some examples of some signifiers and a signified concept? So guys, it's just basically a word or a picture and how we interpret it.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
could it be like, you know how when we maybe let's say in a room or in a hall, né?
Yeah.
And then there are signs on doors for like emergency exits, like there's, I think it's the green and white for the exit,
Yes.
and there's above the door,
Yes.
and then there's like one for the fire extinguisher.
Yes.
It's the red arrow that like points down.
Yeah. So exactly. So what are those? If you see those, what would you call those? Are those the signifiers or the signified?
I think they are the signified.
Good try. So it's a signifier. So this is what we say, right?
Okay.
So a signifier, it's the signs or the images or the words. The signified is how we interpret it. We attach meaning to it.
Oh, okay. So when we see it, ne?
Yes.
And then when we act upon it, that's when it's signified.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
Okay.
Ando.
Ma'am, she sparked up something in me. The person who just spoke now. Can sounds also be that, like when you hear like the fire, you know, when you do
Yes.
like those drills?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So there's different things that we can see that can act as signifiers. So once again, a referent, I'm just going to repeat these things because maybe these concepts are a little bit unclear. Okay, it's the real life object, not the word. Okay, not the picture of a cat. It's the real living, breathing thing. Okay, so is there anyone who wants to try? Any more that you can think of? Is there anyone unclear about a signifier and the signified or the signified concept? So we need to understand, guys, as signified concepts, it's open to interpretation.
Ma'am, can I ask, so that means it, because somewhere you mentioned different contexts of people or something like that, they can interpret things differently.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah, so that's why we say, but we say initially that it is unstable, okay? But through common use, it becomes stable, if you understand. So when we all commonly come to know that the word, when we see the word stop, it means that we should stop, it becomes common. And then it becomes stable. So we have everybody has a general understanding of what that word or image represents.
Okay.
So is there anyone confused about this? Guys, please tell me. So basically, I'm going to say it again. A signifier is the sound image of the word or the visual aids that makes up part of a sign. Okay, it's a visual, an image, a sound, okay, spoken words, etc. And it's made up of letters. So it's a word, it's made up out of letters. And then we create meaning out of it. And that is the signified concept. The referent is the real life object. Okay, questions? Is there anyone else who wants to give me some examples? Is there anyone who wants me to go through the F2 assessment?
Me, ma'am, please do.
Okay, Tando. So,
Yes, ma'am. Please.
okay, go. So guys, I'm only going to do it this week because I did it last week. And then after this week, if you have specific questions, then I'll answer it, but I'm not going to go through it again, like the whole thing. Okay, so let me just open it up quickly. Oops, give me a sec. Okay. All right, so guys, I was talking about the assessment last week, and I was saying that not many people passed the assessment, which is really hectic. Also, that's great that I thought about this now. It's that I want to have a session with you guys to talk about ADL 1 concepts, about writing, about essay structures, about plagiarism, mainly referencing. So if you can all just tell me which day you would prefer, not day, but if you would prefer it in the week or the weekend, and if you do want to attend this kind of lecture. Yes, I'm just saying not many people passed. The average was 30% across the board, mainly for things like referencing. And I'm saying this, guys, you guys must learn to attend lectures, because I'm saying the same thing twice here. Last week, I went through a whole thing with everyone about this kind of thing. And the thing is that if you didn't have quotation marks, where you took something that is not your own words, that constitutes plagiarism. So across everywhere, Arcadia, Durban, Sandton, the average 30%. Mainly because of, if you took something from the textbook, especially in question 3, then it's not referenced properly, it's plagiarism. Yes, Tando.
You mentioned quotation marks. Even if it's paraphrased, you still need to put quotation marks.
No, not if it's paraphrased. So if it's paraphrased, then it's fine. That's obvious, guys. So this is what I'm saying. For paraphrasing, we don't need to put quotation marks because that's paraphrasing. But if you don't know how to paraphrase correctly, and you think you paraphrase correctly, but you use 3 or 4 words from the original, that is plagiarism, because that needs to be in a quote. So do you guys want to do a session where you understand essays, how to write essays, how to reference, how to create, how to do paraphrasing correctly? Please let me know in the chat. If no one comes to the lecture, then there's nothing I can do, or if no one wants to come, let me know. So Sesam says yes. Does anybody else? I mean, Tando says yes. Is there anyone else who wants to join? So I'm going to see who wants to come this week in all my lectures, and we'll hopefully have a lecture in the next few weeks talking about this thing. Okay. Okay, cool. I see there is a lot of people that do want to come. All right. So guys, let's go through this quickly. So submissions are open from May 21st to May 27th. Okay. And we are going to be talking about all the topics that we've discussed about contemporary media theory and the ways in which media and culture impact upon each other. You must know how to write an opinion piece on a given topic surrounding media and culture while being able to reference the works of others and avoid plagiarism, and therefore the plagiarism penalty of -50. Yes, this is what everybody got. Some people wrote amazing things. I still had to apply that plagiarism penalty, unfortunately. That's why we say, come to lectures, come to lectures, come to lectures. So the first question, culture in South Africa. South Africa has been famously referred to as a rainbow nation because it is made up of so many diverse cultures and religions. And we have Zulu, Xhosa, Pedi, Tswana, Ndebele, Khoisan, Hindu, Muslim, and Afrikaner people. So write an essay, a descriptive essay. I just want to make that bold because we need to know the different kinds of essays. So you're not going to give me an argumentative essay when I'm asking for a descriptive one. And the essay must have an introduction, body, and conclusion, and follow the structural conventions taught to you in ADL 1. It should be between 500 and 600 words in length, and it should draw on other sources of information. It should not be purely composed of your own opinion. These extra sources must be referenced. If you're taking a quote, it needs to have quotation marks. Anything more than 3 or 4 words needs to be in quotation marks. It is not paraphrasing if you maintain some of the words that are used in the original quote. Okay, so let's go to the rubric to see what they want. Introduction, body, and conclusion, appropriate linking words, strong introduction, an effective introduction sets the scene immediately. Within the first few sentences, it should be obvious what the rest of the essay is about. Relevant body section, 4 marks. Appropriate conclusion, 2 marks. Appropriate linking words, 2 marks. The first thing a marker will likely do is to examine the student essay, content focus, word limit, and other set requirements. A well-crafted essay will have a clear sense of structure. This is the template upon which the student hung the message. Get the structure right and you're well on your way to creating a great essay. So when we have this extra class, I do hope that you're going to come. We're going to talk about the thesis statement, paragraphs, topic sentences, evidence, etc. Okay, all these kinds of things we need to know. Quality of argument 1, evidence of research, critical thinking, and clear argumentative skills. Based on that one topic that the learner has selected, here is where you assess how well you have understood the question and how much you know about the subject. So we're not just simply fact checking, which we do, but we're going to see if you have it linked together coherently in a nice way that's understandable, that flows. We ask, how well is your message conveyed by the argument you're exploring, the way you bring in expertise, 4 marks, how you formulate your own opinion, 4 marks, and how you develop your argument, 2 marks. Guys, I'm going through this with you because many times no one is looking at this, and this is how we mark. We look at if you have these things. Quality of argument 2, evidence of research, critical thinking, and clear argumentative skills, how you develop your second argument based on research. So often in academic writing, it can be tempting to cram as much detail into a sentence as possible or include every single point. This is the wrong way. Okay, we must show our understanding of what we know and our clarity. You must develop your opinion based on your second argument. And then we have a good conclusion. Guys, you have to have a conclusion. In a conclusion, you don't write anything new. There's no new information. You outline the major points. Questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, question 1.2. Drawing on post-structuralism, explain the importance of radio and broadcasting media in the construction of the idea of the Rainbow Nation in a post-apartheid South Africa. Cite sources to solidify your argument. So firstly, we need to understand what post-structuralism is. Then we explain it in the context of radio and broadcast media. How does it create the idea of a Rainbow Nation? Okay, let's look at the rubric for that. Student clearly explains post-structuralism theory. 3 marks for defining the theory. You're just defining it. You're putting it in quotation marks. You're referencing it correctly. Then you explain the importance of radio and broadcast media in the construction of the idea of the Rainbow Nation, post-apartheid South Africa. So you need to apply the theory to real life. And 1 mark for each point raised to explain the importance of radio and broadcast in the construction of the idea of a Rainbow Nation. So 7 marks, 7 points. Questions? We did speak a little bit about post-structuralism today. You can do your own research. You can check the textbook about it. Question 2, contemporary media theory. We did discuss Black Panther last week, and we did discuss post-Marxism and other theories that are contained within Black Panther. So Black Panther is a title held by T'Challa, a member of the royal family of the fictional African country Wakanda. After the death of his father, T'Challa claimed the throne and the role of Black Panther. He was exposed to the mystical herb that enhanced his strength and agility to near superhuman levels. If we are surrounded by media and communication, then it's necessary for us not only to understand the range of media theories, but also to apply them. Explain in detail how postmodernist and post-Marxist theorists will interpret the movie Black Panther. What are we looking for here? Student appropriately defines postmodernist and post-Marxist theory. Your definitions for 4 marks. You're basically looking at the textbook, you're looking at outside sources, you're defining it. Then you're explaining in detail how postmodernists and post-Marxists will interpret the Black Panther movie. 3 marks for explaining how postmodernist thinkers will analyze the movie. 1 mark for each point raised. 3 marks for explaining how Marxist theorists will analyze the movie. 1 mark for each point raised. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Question 3, globalization and identity. So this is what I want to tell to everyone. I was reading everybody's essays. People are telling me about economics. People are telling me about politics. No one's telling me about the social aspect, which includes identity of globalization. People are confusing ideas about Eritrea and censorship with globalization. These are 2 different concepts. Globalization is part of liberalism, capitalism. Censorship is mostly in communist countries or closed forms of government. It's not the same thing. I don't know why I got this in the assignment. So globalization and identity. The process of globalization and its attendant consequences may lead to a stripping away of identity. It will lead to a breakdown in social interaction within a local context, a vital means that is used to build a great sense of identity and belongingness. To what extent do you disagree or agree with the statement, and provide examples from South Africa to back up your answer? Okay, I've been reading so many different things. We can talk about so many different things. I spoke to you about language. We spoke about African people. We spoke about the way we dress, the food we're eating. Okay, so let's go and see what's needed from that question. Student defines globalization and cultural identity, 4 marks for defining each concept. Student then provides an example of loss of identity from a South African perspective to which the theory applies. 3 examples to given, 2 marks each for each example developed. So you develop it. You give an example, you talk about it in the context, you talk about context. For example, it's the most common language spoken in South African schools and colleges is English. And I see it every day in my life, and it means that I'm speaking more English more than I'm speaking my mother tongue. And this is going to lead to to language loss. So you give it your example and you develop it. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Question 4, feminism and the media. Feminists believe that the media produce and reproduce gender inequality. With this in mind, discuss how the mass media uses stereotyping, objectification, and sexualization to exert patriarchal power in society. You got those images in the previous assessment. How were those images pushing through patriarchal power in society? Okay, so you can use those kinds of things if you got it right previously to talk about it in this assignment as well. So, question 4, student clearly explains how the mass media uses stereotyping, objectification, and sexualization to exert patriarchal power in society. Student must utilize the feminism and post-feminist theories. 2 marks given on defining patriarchal power, 2 marks given for each point raised on how mass media uses stereotyping, 2 marks given for each point raised on how mass media uses objectification. Any questions? Is there someone that's uncertain about something right now? So 20 marks, formatting, evidence requirements. Work is presented neatly and professionally. There are no errors of spelling, grammar, punctuation, or sentence construction. all academic work must have in-text referencing and a corresponding reference list at the end of the BMH Harvard referencing style. If you don't put quotation marks, it's plagiarism. Non-plagiarism declaration minus 10 marks. So here you see all these things. Failure to put a direct quotation when in-text citation is provided for. All these things, please read through this. Okay, I didn't see 1.5 spacing. Arial font, I saw so many different fonts with no spacing. And this is how you make sure that you save your file. Please read this entire brief. Don't skip any parts. Look at the mark allocation. Any questions? Any questions? Yes, Tando, you have a question?
Ma'am, when is this class going to be this week?
No, it won't be this week. It will probably it will be after Easter. So maybe from the 18th to the 22nd. So in this class, we will talk about ADL1 concept. So we'll talk about things like referencing. Okay, we'll talk about maybe secondary referencing as well. And we'll talk about essays and essay structure and writing. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Is there anyone that doesn't want to attend this class? Please let me know. Even though there's only 9 students, guys, there's like, I have to mark like 100 essays, but only 9 students come to the online class. Any questions about today's lecture?
No, ma'am.
Guys, listen, I'm here to support you in anything that you do. If you need some help, send me an email. I can't be chasing after people, okay, if I want you to pass. So you need to understand that you need to do it. You need to ask me questions if you're not clear about something, okay? Please, I don't want people to fail. I want you to do well. Okay, so in the next class, we are going to be on campus. We're going to continue just to discuss signs and semiotics. Think about how signs and symbols correlate to the media. Okay, so I will see you all next week. Okay, have a good week. Please attend your lectures. And you can start with some aspects of the assessment. You can see there's a lot to do. A lot. Okay, once again, if you have questions, email me. If you want any slides, email me and I'll help you. Okay, bye everybody. See you next week.
Sorry, ma'am. Can I ask, online class are only 1 week?
Once a week, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.